Furiosa. I gave it a fresh tomato, but that doesn't mean I don't have a couple of issues with it, which is why I said it wasn't as good as Fury Road. So let's go over my issues with the film first, and then we can talk about the good stuff. There's some very good stuff to discuss, some epiphanies I had about the film. Now, as we've discussed before, George Miller said the whole reason he recast Furiosa with a younger actress is because this takes place earlier in her life. Some of you have been guessing that maybe it was because of the drama on set for Fury Road, but it seemed to me like a lot of that drama came from Tom Hardy, not Charlize Theron, so I don't know why she couldn't come back. But then, so I didn't love that they changed actresses to begin with. And then I saw the movie, and it ends with Anya Taylor-Joy's Furiosa sneaking the 5 wives out into the rig, leading directly into the beginning of Fury Road. So why replace Charlize Theron if that's how you're setting up the end of your movie? You know, especially when Alyla Browne is already playing a much younger Furiosa in 50% of the film. I mean, why not go right from Alyla Browne to Charlize Theron? I don't, or have all 3 actresses in the movie. They could have done that. Why not bring Charlize Theron in at the very end to have that lead up into Fury Road? I guess a lot of time has passed because Dementus now merged with the tree. We're going to talk about that. He's pretty old, but I also imagine that feeding a tree with your body would age you pretty quick. So we still have really no idea how much time has passed. Anyway, as the film is, because I'm saying some of you might argue, well, that was years later, right? But when you watch the film, it feels like Furiosa goes pretty much from doling out justice to Dementus to escaping with the wives. I mean, clearly maybe a year or a couple years at least have passed, but how could they? Because, you see how Dementus looks with that tree. But Furiosa is so determined to return. I have a hard time believing that she would wait another 5 or even 10 years to make another escape attempt. Especially because she was so primed to do so then. It just felt weird and kind of unfair to have Taylor-Joy going right into Fury Road, which was Charlize Theron's movie. And in fact, over the end credits, they play clips of Fury Road with Charlize Theron. And it continues to not sit right with me. And I wouldn't have minded it if they hadn't had the movie lead directly into Fury Road. That's what really was, I was like, whoa, man, what are you doing? All right, then there's the reveal of how Furiosa lost her lower arm, which, as is super badass, right? But I feel it's a missed opportunity. Allow me to explain. And I know some of you are like, judge a movie on what it is, Grace, not what you wish it was. But it's poor writing. I have to take off points. And tell me if you agree after I explain it, what my thoughts are on it. All right? So as is in the movie, Furiosa's arm gets mangled in a car chase sequence, which again was very cool. So Dementus, being Dementus, is like, string her up by one of her arms and, hey, use the injured arm so that she can watch Praetorian Jack's death. But because it's the badly mangled arm, she's able to rip off the lower part of her arm and escape. Now, we don't see her do that. Are you kidding me? All the stuff they show in this movie and we don't see that? But instead, George Miller opts for the reveal of Dementus realizing, hours later, because it takes a long time to kill Praetorian Jack, that she's gone, and all you see is what's left of her arm dangling there. That was cool, but I don't know what would have been cooler. I mean, I think ripping the arm off would have been cooler. But here's the missed opportunity. So there was such a big point made of her not divulging the location of her people, the Green Place. But over the years, she tattooed a map of it on her arm. And that was made a big deal of during the movie. Characters would be like, what's this on your arm? And she'd be like, don't look at it. And that, by the way, I believe is the arm that gets ripped off, causing her to lose the map because I don't believe she used the map in Fury Road. So that alone, she never reacted to being like, damn, not the map. But I had thought that she was going to have to cut off her own arm and destroy it, like throw it into a canyon or something, although someone maybe even then would have gone and got it. But just to keep someone else from getting the map. Well, I was like, why are you tattooing it on your arm when it's so valuable and you might have to get rid of it? I mean, I thought that's the direction we were heading in. And I thought that would have been a lot cooler to show her dedication to not divulging, where her people were and exposing them to a potential threat. I just think that would have been a lot cooler than the way things went down. All right, next, as I said in my non-spoiler review, maybe this movie needs a trigger warning. And a bunch of you are like, oh, don't be a wuss. But, I mean, Fury Road was plenty dark. But I gotta tell you, I feel Furiosa is like more demented, because Dementus is properly named because of the torture that he devises. It's truly disturbing. And since Fury Road didn't have that disturbing factor, and the trailers haven't shown a disturbing factor, I feel people should know that they're in for some disturbing stuff. Now, as for Dementus, he later reveals that doing these horrific things makes him feel alive after all of his own pain and loss, which I guess, you're like, cry me a river, Dementus. But still, I guess throughout history, that is what's motivated a lot of disturbing, dangerous individuals, that their horrific acts on others make them feel alive. But yeah, I wasn't expecting Dementus to have Furiosa's mother cooked and disemboweled alive. I mean, those things were only hinted at, but they were hinted at very strongly. Or that he was having blood harvested from Furiosa as a child so that he could eat blood sausage. You're like, what? And it was also pretty shocking that he not only had Praetorian Jack dragged to death behind a car, but allowed his dogs to eat Jack alive during the process. I mean, a guy was also drawn and quartered, and that was like the least horrific thing in the movie. I mean, again, George Miller would always cut away right before, but still, it was like, these were very disturbing images. Also, that Rictus Erectus was interested in young Furiosa as a child bride. Again, the movie didn't outrightly show it, but hinted at it very, very clearly. And I just don't know if the movie needed these elements. Fury Road didn't need them. Fury Road was plenty creepy and weird without having to go this far. So Furiosa, there was just something about it that, again, to me at least, seemed to go further than Fury Road, and I felt the story didn't warrant it. I think that the movie didn't need it. You might argue that maybe it did. I did have an emotional reaction to it. I don't think the movie was good enough. It would have to be like really, or as Dementus would say, epic. It would have to be really, really extraordinary, like Silence of the Lambs, to warrant going this far. It shouldn't be done for shock value. It should be done to service the story. And I think there's a little bit of shock value still in the equation here. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. Finally, before we talk about what I really enjoyed, again, I liked the movie. Another element that is missing from Furiosa, which I touched on in my non-spoiler review, is that it's missing the artistry of Fury Road. Again, if it had better artistry, maybe I would have forgiven some of the disturbing elements because I would have felt it was part of the whole genius package. But this seemed more like a product to me. Maybe that's also, it felt less like art. And so I question, it makes me start to go more to my business side. And so that's, when something is so artistic, you're like, oh, it's art, let it go. And, that's how some people are reacting to Megalopolis. They're like, it's hard to sit through, but it's art. And I think, Furiosa would have benefited from that. Like, there are no shots in the film like the sandstorm, the guitar guy, nor Furiosa screaming into the void. Shots so iconic that they're in the end credits of this movie. I think that artistry, as I said, is what set Fury Road apart and other films, whereas Furiosa is more of a typical genre blockbuster, which is why in my non-spoiler review, I made that comparison to Sin City and Watchmen. I actually think Watchmen is a particularly good comparison for Furiosa. A lot of style, but, not as much substance as it should and could have. All right, now I know a lot of you feel Furiosa should be the star of her own movie. When I said Chris Hemsworth stole the show, I saw a couple of tweets of people being like, it's Anya Taylor-Joy's movie, she's the lead. And I agree, she should be the best thing in the movie, but it's not my fault that George Miller created the much flashier role of Dementus and cast it so well. Dementus makes this movie, not just because he's a very unique character, but it's really interesting to see Chris Hemsworth transition from leading actor to character actor. Remember Inglourious Basterds, right? Brad Pitt's in that movie. A lot of great actors are in that movie. Michael Fassbender has a now famous, iconic scene in that film. And everybody does a great job. But Christoph Waltz stole the show, even though it's not technically his movie. And I would say it's a similar situation here. In fact, Dementus has a lot of the same qualities as Christoph Waltz's character in that film. I would say my favorite Dementus moment, and it's hard to choose, I'd love to hear yours down below, would be when, long story short, his nipples get ripped off during a negotiation with Immortan Joe, and he shudders with pleasure. I didn't see that coming, saying that the wave of pleasure made him forget the combination to deactivate the explosives he'd placed in Gastown if he didn't return by sunset. So no sense in trying to get the information out of him. Did he really feel pleasure? Or was that just, part of the show he was putting on? Who cares? It's a great show. It's a great show. I think it's probably with Dementus a little bit of both. That was just such a surprise, and the act itself shocking. And then Hemsworth's reaction just, made it even more intriguing. In fact, this whole negotiation scene is fantastic. Like when Dementus tries to pass Furiosa off, because of course, Immortan Joe notices her. He wants her for his collection of wives. But Dementus tries to pass Furiosa off as his own daughter, claiming he's protected her. And I think in many ways, I think Dementus believes a lot of what he's saying. It might seem ridiculous, but I think he does. I think he actually believes that he protected and helped Furiosa, or as he likes to call her, Little D, a little version of himself. It's established that his own children were killed before the movie, and that's why he carries that teddy bear around, which he gives to Furiosa when she's a child. And I think that does bond them. I knew he was going to do it, and I thought it was great when he took the teddy bear back when she leaves him for Immortan Joe, thinking she'll be better off. And I guess in some ways, it gives her new opportunities to escape. But then later in their final showdown, she wants the teddy bear back. And that's what makes Dementus realize who she is, Little D. I think to a degree they do have a father-daughter relationship. While of course Furiosa comes from a very capable tribe of fierce women soldiers, her mother, a force of nature, we'll talk about her mother. But I think Dementus teaches Furiosa how to harness her pain and use it, and how to survive in that cruel world. I mean, she was living in this beautiful shelter. I mean, it was a sheltered place, even though it was beautiful. And they were very capable soldiers, but they didn't have the on-the-ground experience that Dementus gave Furiosa, the world that they actually were living in. His line at the end, does she have it in her to make his death epic, not only explains a lot about Dementus, but I think that's George Miller's own overall approach to this dystopian hellscape that he's created. Although Dementus doesn't have any meaning to his show. His show is very surfacey. And I think this movie is very Dementus-y, which is very interesting. It's very interesting because Mad Max and Fury Road, Tom Hardy's character was such a quiet character, still waters run deep. And that's one of the reasons maybe. And that version of Furiosa was very different, which we're going to discuss. But yeah, I mean, Dementus is a great character, and this movie, I think, very much reflects him, for better and worse. There's also some truth to it, though, needing to make things epic, as I said, to put on a big show. Leaders have to seem bigger than life, like they deserve to lead. They are the rightful leaders. Early on, Dementus even presents himself as some kind of desert Jesus, and as his character evolves, so does his look to reflect what's happening to him, and I loved that. So he starts out like this innocent Jesus look. Of course, he's anything but innocent, but that's the look he's going for. He's projecting with light brown hair and this white billowy cape, right? Cape and hood. Then he takes on the red look. His hair dyed, his cape dyed by the colored powder from a flare gun, which was an amazing shot. And I think that shows his growing ambition and greed. And then when he's older, his hair graying, he's clad all in black leather. And I believe when he does have his cape on, the edges, I don't recall exactly, I couldn't find a picture of it, but the edges have gone black. Like his choices are eating away at him. I mean, I just thought the visual evolution of the character was really, really strong. And he's a very stupid man with big ambitions and the will to make them happen, which not only makes him incredibly dangerous, but a commentary on real life leaders. Dementus only lives in the now. I think that's his biggest problem. I was thinking about it. I think he only lives in the now, and he never thinks anything through. He's not a planner. He wants to be the new bullet farmer. He wants to be the new Immortan Joe, but he has no idea or even any interest in discovering what made these men the men that he sees before them. He just feels that if he takes all their stuff, he will instantly become them. I guess another difference is that they They both built something, the Citadel and the Bullet Farm. Dementus, though, his whole life has been nothing but a vulture, a predator, running with a pack, a roving gang that just keeps taking enough to survive. That also, to me, is fascinating. I think the movie does have some really interesting things about it, but you got to really dig deep. I guess to be fair, it is there. But again, I just think it's not as artistic. I also love the little tent that Dementus made for himself at the end in the desert with his motorcycle and his cape. It was simple, effective, cozy. I was like, wow, that was a great idea, Dementus. But it's actually two men who make Furiosa into the woman she is later on in Fury Road. And the other one is her love interest, although I don't believe they ever even kissed. But that's Tom Burke's Praetorian Jack. As he says, he can teach Furiosa everything she needs to know about road war, and he certainly does. But he also teaches her that kindness and respect still do exist in this world. What a guy! I love this guy. But as soon as we saw that that they were making plans to escape together, I knew he was a goner. I was like, you jinxed it. He's going to go. And as soon as they started out on that final road trip that they were using as a cover to escape, I knew he was going to die. But that George Miller, he's as demented as Dementus. He made us wait. Because at first, when Praetorian Jack survives the Bullet Farm, I couldn't believe he did. I was like, I knew he was going to die. But I was so scared to see it. But when he got out of the Bullet Farm, you were like, then maybe they are going to make it. Maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised. But it's not that kind of movie. Because then Dementus, because he has the will, catches up with them. I couldn't believe he caught up with them. They couldn't believe it either. And Praetorian Jack not only dies, that long, horrible death with the dogs, but Furiosa has to watch. I've seen one or two things that Burke has appeared in, but I never noticed him before. Here, though, he does just a perfect job of being the perfect man for Furiosa. He is both strong and gentle. He's whatever she needs him to be in the moment. And it's incredibly cruel for her to feel that she found him and that she was going to take him home with her to the green place, only to then have him ripped away. All right, let's talk about Furiosa. As for Anya Taylor-Joy, she does a really nice job and she also looks amazing. But I think the biggest difference between her and Charlize Theron's Furiosa, besides age and physicality, is that Taylor-Joy's Furiosa still has hope. She still believes that she can prevail. But they never show that transition, what steals that away from Theron's version of Furiosa. And you might say, we didn't, but that's the problem with leading directly into Fury Road. As clever as George Miller might have thought that was, it creates suddenly a lot of questions. You're like, but I never saw. How is Furiosa in some ways finally broken? Because remember, in Fury Road, Furiosa didn't know that the green place had been destroyed until towards the end of the film. Yet she starts out the movie, a part of her broken. Is it the death of Praetorian Jack, as I just described? If so, I wish we'd seen that moment for her. How do you make Furiosa watch Praetorian Jack's death and not show what that did to her, not show her reaction to it? Maybe what finally broke her was when she realized that Dementus, for better or worse, had changed her. Maybe better and worse, right? That she is like a daughter to him in many ways. And again, I'd have liked to have seen that moment. The movie is missing the moment where Furiosa realizes that even if she's able to claw back some of what she's lost, she'll never fully recover. And I don't think the movie has that. While Taylor-Joy, again, is very striking in the movie, it's Alyla Browne who made the biggest impression on me in this new film, as Furiosa. She has some really amazing moments, starting from, like Eve, reaching for forbidden fruit in her Garden of Eden. I get the metaphor, George. To her cleverness, tearing the gas line with her teeth, to finally speaking up after years of silence to get away from Dementus, even if it is to go with Immortan Joe, to making that wig out of her own hair so she can escape Rictus Erectus, and to posing as a boy, saving that truck on chains, which allows her to move up the ranks. Great sequences. All right, let's talk action. To me, these are the strongest action sequences in the movie. Furiosa's mother trying to save her, the attack on the rig, ambush at the Bullet Farm, which of course leads into the desert car chase, and then Furiosa versus Dementus. I'm not going to do them in order because some of them are parallels. So with Furiosa's mother trying to save her at the beginning, that was amazing because she just would not stop. But she wasn't hysterical. She was determined. She was driven. with Dementus's men thinking it must be Furiosa's father coming after them, addressing stereotypes. Sure, at a number of points, they clearly used green screen with the motorcycle, particularly when, Charlie Fraser was riding it. But it was okay because it gave it that Sin City surreal feel. 2 times, Furiosa was told by loved ones to leave them and save herself. And 2 times, she refused to listen to them. She couldn't save her mother and she couldn't save her lover, but she could witness their deaths and be with them at the end. And she did ultimately avenge them. But again, it's very good. But again, it's just not all the way there. That's what's great, though, about her going after Dementus at the end. I didn't realize it when I was watching the movie, but thinking about it now, doing these notes, she's like her mother in that sequence, chasing someone across the desert, an unstoppable, driven, effective force that you don't see. I mean, like a force of nature. That was incredible. Is Dementus's fate epic? Having a tree grow out of him, so he feeds it with his body. Alone, hidden atop Immortan Joe's stronghold. That's the fate that they say there are a lot of legends about what she did, and maybe even that's just a legend. But is this epic? I'm not sure. I'm curious what you think. I think intellectually, it's certainly a very strong metaphor, because there's the Eve metaphor at the beginning of the movie, and then at the end, she creates a new tree that has new fruit that she created that feeds off of a man. And I guess maybe that has something to do with, it's a reversal of some sort of Eve being made from Adam's rib. Because, I think I'm not quite sure what the metaphor is, but I'm like, okay, it's certainly interesting, but it doesn't get me emotionally. Not like how I felt with Praetorian Jack's death. He was such a nice stand-up guy in a sea of cruelty and deceit. But then I guess, how can a guy like that survive in a world like that? And again, I knew he was going to die, but then they made us wait so long, and his death was so brutal. It really, that I think had perhaps the biggest emotional impact for me in the film. Ambush at the bullet farm was very well done. Almost it felt like a stunt show, don't you think? With Dementus barely able to control his gang at that point. Also when they were at the Gas Town and his team was going nuts, and Dementus was like, "Follow me if you want to get out of here." And we followed we could see from the POV. It felt like a ride or a theme park stunt show, right? But Dementus is so driven. So in the bullet farm ambush, just when you think this preening idiot is past his prime, and Furiosa and Joe, they escape, they survive. But when Dementus was like, "Get out of the car, let me get in there. We don't have time to try and get the gate open," and he rams it down with the monster truck, I was like, yeah, he is the leader for a reason. I mean, he's not the brightest guy, but I think he's the most determined. And again, he has the ability to put on that show. I mean, and he caught them. I couldn't believe he caught up to them. I mean, as I said, they couldn't believe it either. Both Furiosa and Dementus were evenly matched. They both really knew what they were doing. And I think the problem was that Furiosa, because she still had hope, she felt for a moment that they had survived and that it was over. And she, I think, maybe let up on the gas pedal a little. I wish she had just kept going like a bat out of hell, realizing that Dementus would not stop, because that allowed him to catch up to them. It was really sad. And then finally, of course, the attack on the rig, where Furiosa literally comes out of hiding and bonds with Praetorian Jack. So that was kind of like a first meet to them, almost like a meet cute, but then also a very, very good action sequence. This was when the movie was the most like Fury Road, and it was a long, relentless, complex action sequence that was very rewarding to watch, not only in the choreography, but in the inventiveness of what these road warriors on both sides had dreamed up. You're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And, it was very good. All right, so that's my spoiler review of Furiosa. Not on the level of Fury Road, not a work of art, but still a compelling piece of genre storytelling. Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.